Hi, everyone. Samantha Varner here from ProSymmetry. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited for this topic. Our very own Lloyd Norman, he is going to be presenting on how resource capacity planning creates real business agility. We're really excited for this topic. We're really excited to dive into this webinar. Like I said, Lloyd is going to be presenting today, but we will be taking questions as well. So as you have questions throughout the webinar, please submit them in the chat here. We really want to get those answered at the end. We don't plan on taking too much of your time today. We know how quickly we want to move through these things and for everyone to take the important information and roll forward. So with that said, Lloyd, if you want to go ahead and kick us off, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Very happy to do that. Happy to join you, Samantha. Appreciate the introduction. And for everyone else that's on the call today, happy that you could join us. My name is Lloyd Norman. I'm with ProSymmetry. We are the exclusive providers of Tempus Resource, a product that has been recognized by numerous entities, not the least of which is Gartner. We are #1 in their critical capabilities for resource capacity planning, obviously in the Magic Quadrant as well. We're also a scaled Agile platform partner. So I'm going to take about 20 minutes today, about half and half. I want to go over just a couple of slides and then actually show you some capabilities, really emphasizing the need for us to do capacity planning if we want to have business agility. We've proven this out across our client base. These logos here really are just a fraction of some of the customers that we have. And I wanted to make 2 points here. One is the principles that I'm going to be talking about today are really applicable across all industries, really across all verticals. Also, this notion, if you will, of optimizing your portfolio flow while maximizing your flexibility, being able to make intelligent decisions about how I'm going to adjust my portfolio flow based on changing business conditions. It's really applicable regardless of what delivery methodology you're using. The vast majority of our clients are actually hybrid, meaning they're doing things in a waterfall fashion. They've got production ops work, but they are also doing things in an agile fashion. Some of them are following the SAFe framework. Others are following other frameworks. Just want to make sure that you understand the principles I'm talking about today are widely applicable. All right, so here's the challenge. It really comes down to how can we adapt easily? And talent availability is always the gating factor for determining how I can change my portfolio flow. And if you think about that, I have asked numerous CIOs who I have the privilege of meeting with on a routine basis. I get a chance to sort of cruise the world these days and have lots of conversations. And I'll ask them the question, what is it that gates your flow? Is it your people or is it your finances? Never once have I received finance back as an answer. They always unanimously say, yeah, it's my availability to the right talent that gates my ability to change quickly. And so I wrote down just some questions here. And honestly, this list could have been twice as long, twice as wide. These are the kinds of questions that immediately come up when new work is introduced into the portfolio. Something slips, right? There's some new regulatory requirement. Your businesses are as diverse as the logos that I just showed on the second slide. And I don't know what your particular challenges are, but I can say with confidence that if you're on a call like this looking about how to increase business agility, then you've got to be asking these kinds of questions. Someone in your portfolio operations, be it your PMO or your APMO, they've got to be asking these questions on a regular basis. The nice thing, again, about these kind of questions coming in a scaled Agile framework is you've got a little structure around that, but it doesn't matter whether you're talking about teams or people. You've got to figure out how I can resequence my work and what the impacts are across my organization from doing that. And I need to do that intelligently or I'm going to sub-optimize. Because pushing new work in for example, there's a lot of interrelated dependencies here, right? You've got financial impacts. You want to make sure that you're meeting your commitments to your board relative to strategic work mix. Obviously, you have hard interdependencies, right? If I've got certain capabilities that I have to deliver, I've got business as usual or keep the lights on work. There's a balance that you have to find there. I would submit to you that these decisions, obviously, you can't make in a vacuum, but none of them are as important as looking at resource availability. All of them hinge on, do I have the talent available to accommodate this new work? And if I don't, right, and new work can be either brand new work or it can be substantial changes to work that's already in progress, right, because things happen. If I don't have that availability, then like those top items, they kind of start to play second fiddle real quickly. Now they need to be sorted out to be sure, and we've got capabilities that will help you do that. But I would submit to you again, it's resource availability that forms the foundation of agility. What we offer, Tempus Resource specifically, is very similar to smartphone planning, if you will. I was working my way out to Australia not long ago, had an extended layover in LAX, and I ended up with some extra time and went up here to Santa Monica. I had to get back to the airport, probably took too long, had a little too much fun up there. And this was similar to what I found, right? And if anybody on the call here is from Southern California, this I'm sure is not remarkably new to you. But this notion of, wow, isn't it nice that we have devices that we can take with us that can give us sort of the 50,000-foot view of, oh, here's where I've got capacity constraints on the highway, right? And how can I reroute my roadmap to make sure that I'm getting around those capacity constraints? That is exactly what we do. We make it exceedingly easy for portfolio planners, program managers, project managers, product managers to look at their scope and say, oh, I've got capacity constraints here. How can I reroute? What should I be pushing around to make the most of what I have available to me within the time and financial constraints that I have? That's what it's all about. We do that by allowing you to easily adapt your roadmap virtually. We allow you the opportunity to have as many virtual environments as you want. This is really a fantastic thing, and I'm going to show this to you here in about 2 minutes. Essentially, what we say is, if you've got a portfolio of work as represented up above here, right, and you can see down below that whether my teams or my people, down to the individual named level if you want, are going to be over allocated, and anywhere there's red or orange here, it's saying essentially, I've got more work than my people can hand. I am, whoops. Hi, Sam, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. I completely hear you.
Okay, good.
Go ahead and exit. Yep, go ahead and cancel that. Yep. Okay,
good. I just wanted to make sure I didn't drop. So with that said, essentially what you're looking at here is these are skill shortages, right? I've got too much work for my inventory team. I've got more work than my program managers can handle, in particular Joyce Baker down here. And so what happens if I start to resequence this work? You're able to do this in real time without impacting your production data. You can come in here and selectively say, I don't want to move my keep the lights on work, but I do want to move work that's low priority or work that is associated with a certain key performance metric. I don't want to touch that, right? These are pet projects for the C-suite. You get to come in here, you have complete ability to determine how you move this work around, and you immediately get to see what the impacts are on your resources. You also get to immediately see what are the impacts to your financials, right? To my WIP limits. All of these things in real time, fully interactive. We call it smart capacity planning. And I want to use this, sort of build on this example if I can for about one more minute. Again, it's just much like we would plan on the internet today, a trip. You know, the first steps are we decide, hey, where are we going to go and who's coming with us, right? That's the fun part. Then we start to do a little bit of analysis saying, well, what options do we have? What route are we going to take, right? If we're going to go around the world, are we going to go through Asia? Or are we going to go through Africa, right? That sort of a thing. Once everybody involved, helps decide the route, so to speak, now you make sure that you're able to take your reality, your production environment, if you will, and you start paying for reservations, right? You start sharing status as you go, right? But you're sure now at this point that you're able to follow these options because you did some planning. This is where we say, look, the approach that we're talking about today, this smart capacity planning, I tell people all the time, it is capacity that is the currency of coordination. Look, whenever you go out to, well-known entities that are perceived as, having excellence in the project delivery space, whether it's scaledagileparametric.com or PMI or the Resource Management Institute, they will all tell you it's a best practice to size your work, right? You need to understand your resources before you get down into the detailed planning level. So that's what we say. We make it very easy for you to size your work. Then, as I talked about, we allow this fully interactive, easy to model way to adapt your flow to make sure that your people, your skills are always lined up to work on your highest priority initiatives without burning out your people, right? That's the problem. Because if you don't do that and you get into the cycle where you're always asking heroic efforts from your folks, you're going to build a culture that encourages people to leave your organization. Once you've determined, virtually how the best way for me to adjust my work is based on my changing business conditions, all you have to do is change your production roadmaps, the dates on your production roadmaps, because you've sized your work. Just shift them to match your model, and then you essentially, by default, reserve your talent for those efforts. None of this process, by the way, involves the detailed delivery teams, right? They are blowing and going. Your Scrum Masters are down there pulling the next highest thing from the backlog using Jira, ADO, whatever ALM tool that you might be using. Your project managers are using Microsoft Project or some other PPM tool, right? But they have to be coordinating their work at a higher level by doing these kinds of high-level estimates, which are typically done by, in the Agile case, your release train engineers, your product managers. If you're talking project managers, these high-level estimates typically do involve a project manager, but in coordination with program management, portfolio management, right? This is a task that happens simultaneously to the delivery, the detailed delivery down here, because they're essentially following the same process, but they're doing it at a completely different level, much more detailed. If you're talking Agile environment, they're delivering stories, features, right? Doing 2-week sprint planning or whatever your intervals may be, right? The same with project planning. They're having weekly stand-up meetings, hopefully, possibly more, from a project perspective, working out their details down here. But they're doing it with talent that was reserved by doing higher level capacity planning. When you do that, you're able to continuously make sure that your roadmap delivery has the capacity to match your enterprise strategy. And the finances just come along, right? Because your labor costs, your external costs, they're easy to track in the right kind of automation. And we'll show you that in just a second. So this is the last slide that I've got here. We believe, and hopefully you'll see today, how capacity planning sustains both optimal delivery on an ongoing basis, as well as business agility, helping you to make informed decisions, data-driven decisions on a go-forward basis without impacting the detailed delivery of your teams in an uncoordinated way. We coordinate that, right? So let me dive in and show you just a couple of things. From a product perspective, again, I'll be ending this with plenty of time for questions here. So I'm going to pull this up and say, here's a typical project for you, right? I'm just going to dive into one of these projects here. So here's your project, right? It starts in February of 24, goes through the middle of 25. Here's the resources, the people, the teams of different velocities from totally different arts. Notice, please, all on a common timeline, even with generic resources. You can have your teams come in and estimate by story points or percentage FTE. You can have typical cross-functional managers come in and say, yeah, the way I like to do it is I like to say, I'll give you 30% of one of my people for 6 weeks, or they can come in and do it by hours. I'm going to give you, I think this is 120 to 140 hours, for the next 7 months for this team. Our automation lets you map all of that onto a common timeline. Again, you can forecast this in story points with different velocities from teams, from different arts, right? Our automation lets you blend that on a common timeline. All of this, very, very easy to edit. You can see what's green and what's yellow. Any square that's red says that, hey, I'm over allocated. Maybe not on this project, but overall, I'm out of electrical engineers. So this is a risk to your project. Again, you can just grab this, drag and drop, very easy. Nice to see. Another thing that we provide you is holistic views of your work and your resource availability, those areas that you're going to see constraints in. This is production data here. I've organized it by our strategic theme. These are all the epics and projects that are tied to a cost reduction theme. I've got my OKRs here. Here's all the work that's tied to reducing my operational costs 25%. That's a quarterly OKR that I'm looking at, right? If I want to go in and look specifically at Cinnamon Phase 20, this is an epic, right? I can see, I'm starting to see teams and named people here that are reaching their allocation limit. I've already got a couple down here that are over their allocation limit. Why is that? Very early, your program managers, your product managers, your portfolio managers can see across the board where I have these issues. You can organize this however you would like. I happen to organize it by strategy and OKR. But if I was a release train engineer, for example, if I was in the manufacturing art, here's my teams, right? I can see already that I need to do some refining of my estimates because certain teams, like my inventory team, I'm over my WIP limit right here, but also over allocated. This is what we talk about when we say coordination comes down to coordinating capacity. It always does. Now, I wanted to spend some time showing this virtual environment, if you will. You can have as many of these environments as you want. Imagine, if you will, your portfolio of epics projects. You can blend epics and projects up here, and you can see down below where I've got over allocations. In my manufacturing art, for example, you can see I've got issues here at an art level, and this is why we recommend forecasting at a team level, as of version 6 of the Scaled Agile framework came out this last March. Same thing. You can come in here and see my inventory team. What are they working on, right? Where have I got issues? My shipping team, for example, they're working on these. Well, I can't do this, right? Because I'm heavily over allocated. What happens if I come in here and I start to slip the precision fires project? For example, you can see in real time what the impacts are, not only to specific teams, but the supporting organizations, right? All the shared services organizations. This is very, very difficult to figure out if you're trying to do this in Excel or just coordinate this through regular meetings. If you don't have data-driven discussions to say what happens, if we want to push this, this is something that we think is low enough priority we could push so we could do this other work. You get to see month by month. Yeah, you can do this by quarter, by week, by day. Here's my allocation before I make this change, my allocation after I make this change. You can come in here and say, hey, well, what happens if we want to determine where the best place to start this work will be, right? I can do something called an opportunity map. This is actually an AI integration, a useful AI integration, I might say, that says, look, if I need all of these resources, I can't really start this until January of 2025. But if I can get by with just 80 or 85%, look, I can scoot this up 6 months. And this is where I'm going to have problems, right? So I know months in advance, can I go out and get resources? Can I redirect resources internally from lower priority work? And in fact, if you want, you can even see specifically, how many hours, how many people, up or down, that I'm over or under allocated. I'm short 2 people here, right? I've got 1.5 worth of capacity here. It's a fabulous way to conduct business. You also have that same privilege relative to your financials, right? So on a project by project basis, we're looking at labor cost, external expenses here. Same sort of thing. If you take a project and start to push it out, you can see the real-time updates down here, right? As to what's that doing to my CapEx, my OpEx. So this virtual environment is incredibly helpful to be able to optimize overall portfolio flow. Because anytime you come out here and look and say, hey, in the next 90 days, I've got serious over allocations here, you've got real risks to your ability to deliver. And you're either going to overwork your people or you're going to do something like this to make these adjustments. If you're not doing this in a controlled environment, people will try to do their best, but they always end up suboptimizing. And that's why we say, we continuously help organizations to optimize their steady state portfolio flow, but also their flexibility and their business agility. All right, so hopefully I've spawned some questions with this thought. If you'd like to have further discussion, of course, reach out to us. Here's my email here, but you can reach any of us at ProSymmetry.com. What I'd like to do is turn some time back over to you, Sam, and take any questions that you have, and we'll hopefully help you guys gain a little more perspective on how you can gain business agility through creative resource planning.
Yeah, so Lloyd, one of the questions that came in that I think is really good is, this is all great, right? How do we get started with this? How can someone who maybe they're resource planning in Excel right now, or maybe they're not, they're doing the prioritization, things like that, but how can they get started with this?
That's such a great question. So by default, people do this in Excel. Look, people aren't ignorant. They understand that, hey, I've got to balance my resources, right? The challenge is a lot of these tools, especially things like your typical Agile lifecycle management tools, even the PPM tools. The RMI did a wonderful survey year before last, went out and talked to 2,000 companies around the globe that had PPM tools, and 70% of them were doing resource planning in Excel, which I thought was fascinating because PPM tools tend to be task-oriented, and people hate putting people on tasks for a variety of reasons, right? It's very cumbersome. So with that said, what we offer is the SMART process. Look, it's a best practice as documented again by PMI, RMI, Scaled Agile. Just size your work. Our tool looks like Excel. We designed it that way for easy adoption. Size your work. Doesn't matter if you're a project manager, size your work. If you're a resource manager, size your work and make it visible, right? That's the thing. Once you start having discussions with people, showing them what they're working on, and easily tying that back to, oh, this is from this portfolio, and here's the relative priority that we were given, right? So if you want to redirect my team to do something else, fabulous. Let's make sure that we pull those people in and we sort of level the playing field, and I'm happy to go wherever you want. All of these become data-driven discussions, and it doesn't matter what role you have in the organization. If you just start by sizing your work, even if with the understanding that, oh, the sizing is just a high-level estimate, right? It'll give you a data point to start from. And then the more people you get in your enterprise that are sizing their work and providing consistent views across what they're doing, now the discussions just get better and better. But I would say, regardless of what your role is on this call, whether you're an executive, project manager, anywhere in between, just start sizing your work.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting working with every customer that we have had in the last 4 years, the amount of people who come back and say, like, the data that we didn't have before because we were using Excel or we were using a task management tool, that has opened up doors and just opened up eyes to the reality of what's going on. Projects, work needs to get done, obviously. We want innovation, we want business strategy, we want all those things. But then there's a reality of what can get done and what the priorities are, and it's all from that sizing. So I think that's awesome. One last question, Lloyd. I know we're about to hit that 30-minute mark, and we want to let people get on with their day here. One last question for you is, how difficult is this to really get started? It sounds like it could be a little bit of a climb to get there. So in your opinion, in your experience, how difficult would it be for an organization to get started with this type of planning?
Oh my, when you consider the benefits, it's actually quite easy to get started, right? So again, I tell people, start where you are. Look, it's fabulous to have a grandiose vision of having everybody coordinated and that sort of thing, and we provide that, and we'll help you get there one step at a time, right? But it really is quite easy. Again, if I'm a project manager, I'm going to start sizing my work so I can have informed discussions with the cross-functional managers that are supporting my effort. If I'm a resource manager, same thing in reverse. I want to have intelligent decisions with the PMs that are coming to me trying to take my people off ops work, right? Same thing with portfolio managers. Just start where you are. But you must understand, and you have to convey effectively, that it's capacity that is the currency of coordination. And if you're not coordinating your work effectively, you've got to look at how you're managing your capacity. And if you're not managing your capacity effectively because you're doing it through 32 separate spreadsheets, which I actually did, like in a previous role, it was a nightmare. Doing that holistically in a single system that provides a common view is the way to resolve those issues. And it dovetails, regardless of what methodology that you're using, scaled Agile, waterfall, or whatever, right? Just, you can't not do this, or you cannot do it, right? But you should expect the consequences, right, that come along with that. You're just going to have disorganized and suboptimal delivery.
Yeah. I was recently talking with someone about just in my personal life and in my professional life, the more I organize and plan and get things aligned, the happier I am. And I think, working with all of our customers, that is a common theme here. The more organized, the more planning you can do, within reason here, the happier your teams are going to be, the happier your business is going to be, the happier your people are going to be, just because everyone is working from the same information and everyone knows what's going on.
Well, you'll actually end up saving time you'll save time during that process, right? Yeah,
definitely. All right, well, Lloyd, we have hit that 30-minute mark. Thank you so much. For everyone who is on this webinar, the recording of this webinar will be available on our website, ProSymmetry.com, as Lloyd has listed here. Feel free to share or to visit our website, share this replay with anyone that you think you may need. Feel free to reach out to Lloyd. You can also contact our team, whether by requesting a demo or a trial or just asking us a question. We're happy to chat. So with that said, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye now.